Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the October 3rd, 2024 Police and Public Safety meeting. I'm going to begin by taking attendance. Councilmember Brennan is on her way. Town Supervisor Aaron Cassidy Dorian, welcome as Town Supervisor. Myself, Deputy Chief Joe Twitty, Lieutenant Todd Grenier, Town Clerk Michelle Martinelli, and we have Ian Munger, Detective Ian Munger. I have Mr. Yeagle, I have Mr. Clapp. Did I miss anything? Okay. We don't have a quorum, so we're not going to be voting on minutes. Under operations, we're going to start this as the reminder. Coming up shortly, we're going to be enacting, as we do every single year, our all-night parking in the town of Niskuna ordinance. It's from November 1st to April 1st, between the hours of 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. So a reminder to our residents, we do issue tickets. We give a grace period for a while where we put up some reminders to remind people of the ordinance. This is to keep vehicles off the roadways for snow plowing and leaf pickup and other things of that nature. So please, please, please be mindful of this and do not park your vehicles on the roadway if at all possible. Under fleet and equipment, our new patrol units 601 and 603 are in transit to be delivered. We're going to be doing some upfitting that's completed by our normal vendor to continue the same equipment layout that they have through specialized vehicle upfitting. We're going to need a resolution to approve the upfitting of these two new vehicles. The upfitting costs were budgeted for this year. For the new 601, it's going to be $18,119.89. Just as a note, the reason that one is so high is because we're buying all new equipment. What we normally do is transition over equipment. This one is getting brand new equipment. And then the 603 is going to be $8,810.60. So I'm going to be working with Town Attorney Finn to write that resolution. Our new 610 was delivered. That's our administrative vehicle. The upfitting was complete and that's in service. Also under fleet and equipment, the new Glock 23 Gen 5 pistols have been ordered for the DD and administration. We're beginning to transition to Gen 5 pistols, and we're going to be working on that into next year's budget to upgrade our firearms for all of our officers. Lastly, I had on there that we're going to look to surplus a decommissioned DD vehicle. It's a 2016 Jeep Patriot. I did have a conversation today with Superintendent of Water Department, Matt Yetto. They have one of these vehicles because we bought them all at the same time. I asked him and also Superintendent Ray Smith if rather than us auctioning it, maybe they would have a use for this vehicle because it's not a police vehicle. And it sounds like Superintendent Matt Yetto of Water and Sewer is looking to do an interdepartmental transfer on this vehicle rather than it going to auction, which would save the town money because it's still in relatively good shape and they could get a lot more life out of that. We didn't have anything under building, under training. Our department's going to be doing our fall range qualification, October 10th through the 11th. Officers Powell, Spataro, Thomason will be attending FTO school, October 10th through the 18th. Again, we prioritize FTO training. In fact, I said to Deputy Chief Twitty and to Lieutenant Brennan the other day, the goal is really to have everyone trained in this because in order for those field training hours to count, you have to have a certified FTO instructor with the recruit candidate. We have two currently in the academy that are going to be potentially coming out and are going to need to be trained. And due to scheduling and things of that nature, sometimes we just have to put them with whoever is physically able and there to train them. Also under training, Sergeant Morrow will be teaching a health class module on internet safety at Niskuna High School, October 22nd through 23rd. This is our third year, I believe, teaching in the health. I did it once. And this will be Sergeant Brennan Morrow's second time. Yeah, so it's a great program that we're doing with the school. We love that collaboration and working with the students. Under citizen correspondence, ongoing, we still have Consall Road. I brought Detective Munger here to just kind of further discuss Consall Road and some of the analysis that he's done, and also some of the look back we're doing on Consall Road to really understand how we got speed limits that were implemented and the different things that have been done over the years. We spoke about Consall Road and the analysis at the last meeting. At that time, I know Mr. Clay had asked if we could continue to have conversations about strictly enforced speed limit signage. I contacted both County Legislator Michelle Osterlich as well as County Legislator Thomas Constantine. It is their budget seasons. They are very aware of this conversation. Legislator Constantine said he would absolutely look to see if they had money in the budget to get that signage up. One of the other things that we talked about was maybe utilizing, we have a shared service with our water department for an electronic billboard, maybe seeing if there was a location that we could put that up as well. And did you want to speak at all about some of the stuff that you've been working on to just kind of understand the dynamics of Consol?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of preface everything with I'm certainly not a traffic engineer, and I'm kind of just coming at this from mostly a law enforcement side. I'm working with Laura Robinson as a town planner, kind of going back to figure out how we got where we are. And I'm also kind of looking at the DOT standards for how speed limits are set and why speed limits are set. We're just talking about Consol. So it kind of going back in the town minutes, we were able to find some speeds that had been set on different roads. Rosendale used to be at 45. It was lowered back in 2008. And it looks like most of the roads in the town are set by kind of a universal speed limit of a catch-all of 30 miles an hour. And some of the other roads, River, Rosendale, some of the other county roads are actually written into the town code to be a higher speed limit. What I'm looking back at and seeing if we can find when Consol Road was set at 30, if it was effort and thought and planning was put into the speed limit being set at 30, or if it was set at 30 because that's what the entire town speed limit was voted on and adopted. In doing the analysis, we have weeks of data for Consol Road. The speeds overall really haven't changed much. I was able to look at doing some selective enforcement where we literally put a police officer next to the counter box and how that affected things. And then overall, how that, enforcement and the different actions that we can do, putting signs up affects speeds. And obviously it has a short-term impact and a short-term effect. But one of the things, once you start digging into some of the DOT manual, there's methods and practices for setting speed limits. It's a 60-page turner. Goes into there's basically 3 methods for setting a speed limit. And what most of them focus on is the 85th percentile. And something that all of our analysis and all of our data is showing is that the 85th percentile is remaining fairly constant between 37 and 38. And something that you see in multiple sections in the book is that if you incorrectly set the speed limit on the roadway, it's a speed limit. It's going to be very hard to enforce and people aren't going to respect it. And if you set a speed limit artificially low, then you're going to end up with what looks like a speeding issue and a speeding complaint because cars are going faster than that because the natural road, the layout of the road was designed to handle speeds at a higher speed. I was able to use a website, one of the many ways of setting a speed limit. The first one is basically you take the 85th percentile. Within 5 miles of that, you kind of set that. DOT has come up with they call it US Limits 2. It's basically a computer program that you enter in. I think it's 20 different variables. All the data that I collected over the speed, the average daily transit, which is about 5,000, give or take, the amount of crashes, historically going back, I think 10 years, the number of driveways. I actually went and counted all the driveways and the entrances. And so a couple different other factors, the average crashes and things. And the computer program actually recommended 40 miles an hour for that road. If you kind of think about it, some other roadways, Rosendale's 35. It's an extremely similar road there. You've got some roads in Clifton Park, Riverview Road. I think parts of that are 45. The roadway and the layout is very similar. Again, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I couldn't make a recommendation to change the speed, but I think it would be important for the town and everyone involved to go back and figure out how historically we got here. And if the speed limit was set at Consol at 30 just because every other town road was set at 30, that may be something that we need to look at. So that was kind of my one main takeaway that I think kind of moving forward, and the town planner has been awesome in helping back and literally going through all those resolutions to find that. So hopefully we'll be able to get that information at some point and figure out if a study was done on Council Road, and if it wasn't, that may be something that the town wants to look into. I certainly have a lot of data I could give to a traffic engineer. But I think also the fact that looking at the crashes and the historical things, Council Road, from kind of everything that we can see, is operating as it was designed to and safely. And something that the DOT really does point through is that you want to look at the 5,000 people that are using that road daily and the people that are living that road as a quality of life, because people are commuting on it. So they're obviously using that road, and whether they may not be Niskayuna tax residents or payers, or they may be from a different area, it's important to kind of take in the road use as well as people living on it.
I appreciate that. That's good information for us to look at.
I'm open. I know I'm kind of, that was a 10-minute conversations, but that was about his thing. If there's any questions or any comments on, I can do my best.
I'd like to ask, why did the county and the state put warning signs around Council Road to indicate that bad turn, reduce your speed, especially around the S turn, 10 miles an hour? These are all recommendations that were done over 25 years ago.
Okay. I honestly can't speak to that. I've been a Niskayuna resident for about 15 years and a police officer for a little over 10. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I don't know why or how those signs were placed where they were.
To let the public know that there are problems on the road.
When you say problems,
There's a
you-
curve, bad curve.
Okay,
Slow
so
down. There's reduced speed, slow down. In other words, if you're going 35, go 30. If you're going 40, go 30, because that's what it is. I don't understand how you can say that you don't know how these things got there.
well, so just to reiterate, I think when you say problems, it's important to say that having a curb on the road is not a problem, right? That is a geographical feature. It's a part of the roadway, and having a sharp turn in a road in itself is not a problem, right? It's just how the original cart path or whatever it was made, right? And then how the town voted on those speed limits, my
Excuse me,
understanding.
sir. The town did not vote on those speed limits that I'm talking about. The state and the county put those signs out to inform the public,
Are you on the
the
turn?
yellow signs.
So those are
Suggested speed limits around.
suggested speed limits. Those are not enforceable speed limits.
I know
Those
they're
are-
not.
Those are recommendations. So the town would not have voted on that. That is 100% correct. That would have been something that I assume the county had put on, but again, that was all.
It was probably before, because I know there was a guardrail put up at one time. There was probably, and when we looked at the crash data, historically, that turn specifically, a lot of it was due to weather related in speed, right? Because sharp turns with slick roads end up being problematic. So I'm sure that played a role in that as well.
Again, I can't speak for why those recommended speed limits were put in there. I'm talking about the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit,
that I
which was
understand.
set as part of the town-wide speed limit. And it's kind of counterintuitive where the speed limit is 30 unless there's another section carving it out. So there's a section that carves out Rosendale Road, River Road, those roads. It's not set by the state, obviously, Route 7. So when the town voted on that, they may not have considered what the speed limit should be on Council Road, just Council Road itself. They said townwide, we're going to do 30. And it just never came up that by doing townwide 30, Council Road was kind of in that catch-all.
Okay, but I'm saying if the county has determined that those corners, the speed, why would they put a reduced speed up there? Maybe you can explain that to me.
I might be able to explain a little bit of that. A lot of times with roads everywhere, if for people that may not be familiar with the road itself, and they're going along at their, whatever the speed limit is, if you don't know because you're not familiar with the area that there is a corner or something, it's telling you that you might want to slow down for that spot because you might not be.
Exactly, that's
But that doesn't
exactly
mean
what
that-
I'm saying.
Okay.
So, and I think what's important to know is with, especially with the reduced speeds, that there's a feature in the roadway that obviously it would be unsafe to do 30 around that corner. In looking at how they set speed limits, something that's very important is consistency. And you don't want to have, and again, this is stuff I just learned from reading the manual, you don't want to have multiple speed zones in a very quick succession. They say, there's a number of, times you want to change the speed because people aren't going to slow down to 25, speed up to 30, slow down back and forth. So when you have like a roadway, what did Council Road, I think it was 5 or 6 miles on that section, having one set road, and then as you approach a hazard or a corner or a geographic location, you have to slow down, you would have that recommended speed limit that could be put into that place. So something that you don't want to do is say, this corner is safe to operate at, I'm just going to say 20 miles an hour. I don't know what the actual speed is, and we can actually measure the corner if we need to. But whatever that speed limit is, whatever the county has determined is, you don't want to try to control traffic for the entire length of that street.
And
For
they're
that
not-
one-
They're not indicating that either. They are saying 20 miles an hour is recommended just for that area. They're
Mhm.
not saying 20 miles down the road, 20 miles up the road.
It sounds like, just to clarify, are you saying we should go back and revisit this? Were you saying to look at the 40-mile-per-hour option?
No, well, I just kind of wanted to put everything in context. So that we don't know why that speed limit was set on 30 miles an hour on console. And something that comes up repeatedly in the literature is that if the roadway speed limit is set artificially low or low for the roadway, you're never gonna be able to enforce or make people drive that speed limit, because the commuter that drives that road twice a day, maybe 4 times a day if they're coming back for lunch, is gonna be like, I know what I feel safe driving that road is, and that's what they're gonna drive.
Don't we put those numbers in? It came up as 40 would be the recommended.
And that's, yeah, so this is the US.
I the copy of that too. I would like to see where you got that from.
Yeah, it's,
Because, one example is, I talked to DOT the other day,
okay,
and they said if the road is marked 30 miles an hour, that's what it is.
so that is for the speed limit, what cars are allowed to drive, that is 100% correct. What I'm saying is, if that speed limit if the roadway, if the speed limit is lower than what it's designed for, if cars can safely travel 40 miles an hour on that road,
That's been proven, sir,
what's been proven?
that the road, maybe I'm getting something across here. If the county went in and the state went in and put in these caution signs, they didn't do it. I was told they didn't do it just because they had extra money they needed to waste, and they didn't do it because they needed to have the people working. They did it for a reason, and the reason was that it was dangerous areas. And I know the police chief doesn't like this, but I've still talked to policemen in Niskayuna and policemen that travel that road. I kind of like go all over the place, and they still say that it is a dangerous road.
So I think what's important to note is you're talking about the 1 or 2 corners where there are warning signs, recommended speed limits put out,
Correct.
and the entirety of the.
No, I'm not talking about the entirety of the road. I am talking about where the county and the state marked the road as being dangerous. They wouldn't have spent the money 25 years ago to go out there and say, well, geez, we're gonna do this just for the heck of it.
So I guess what you're concerned that people are traveling around those corners too fast? Is
Yes,
that-
because just like you said, if a person is used to traveling that road and they're used to going 39 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, they're gonna go 30 miles an hour down through that road and still continue going 39 miles till they hit Colony. And then in Colony, they're gonna still go 39 miles an hour. Now, what I'm getting at. You're taking a broad view of a whole road. I'm taking just a section. It's only about 3/4 of a mile, but like you said, people come down the road, used to going maybe 39, 40, 42. They're not gonna slow down because they made it that time.
Okay.
And they may have made it all these other times, but eventually, and I've seen it in my house, where they're not gonna make it. And
So,
people get hurt, just like on St. David's Lane. Last year or 2 years ago, people thought it was okay to speed down St. David's Lane. Is St. David's Lane a county road?
so I can speak to kind of two of those things. First of all, I was the lead investigator on St. David's Road, and it was a horrific accident. It was a tragedy for many, many people. That you could have had 200 police officers on that road and it still would have happened. They were driving a speed which was 111 miles an hour and they were intoxicated on multiple things. So having an officer on that road would not have helped.
But if they knew, just in the back of their mind, if they knew that they were gonna get a ticket, whether it was that night,
Mr.
I-
Beck, I think we need to move on. I think the point is that for a reason, the county's in agreement with it. It's almost unsafe because the speed limit is too low, so we're looking at maybe raising the speed limit. So that's where we are, and we're not gonna change that right now. But it sounds like we have the information now if we wanted to hire a traffic engineer, if that's something the board wanted to spend money on, that could be a next step.
Could I ask just a data question?
Sure.
Do you have any earlier traffic studies of the area that may, I think you talked about 10 years? Because what I was wondering, if you had traffic studies from previous years and you had vehicular traffic numbers on a daily basis, and then you also had historical data on the number of tickets issued on an annual basis, and accidents, you could kind of correlate it. So I kind
Can I
of.
speak to that? I have
Yeah,
a ring
sure.
card.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I did a 10-year analysis since 2013. This does not include paper ticket. Total crashes in the town of Niskayuna on average are 702 per year. Under ITSMIR, which is the Institute for Traffic Safety Management and Research, they track what a reportable crash is, meaning over $1,000 in damage. That in the town of Niskayuna is 463 per year. Console Road total crashes on an average per year since 2013 is about 13.5 crashes per year. The total number of average tickets is about 40 per year. 2017, we have speeds of average speed of 34 and 33 on two different studies, and 85th percentile of 40 and 38. 2020, it's average speed 32, 85th 39. 2022, average speed's 33, 85th is 39. 2024 average speed is 33, 85th is 39, so it's consistent. Just to be clear, year to date on Console Road, we have 4 total crashes, meaning that we're significantly under the historical average, and we've written year to date 101 tickets. The highest year prior to this year with traffic engagement enforcement on Console Road was 2018, and in the total year that year, we wrote 73. So we're doing the work. The numbers are decreasing. We're significantly below the averages. We're doing the historical data and research, and that's what it is.
How about, do you happen to have the daily vehicle?
So we don't have that because the counters that we had previous were archaic. The new stuff we have is what prints that stuff.
Because that would be interesting to
Well,
know, like if your traffic volume has tripled in the last 6 years, you would expect that, if you were tracking percentile loss, you would probably be issuing that 3 times as many tickets. because
So
you
it
got-
really hasn't. We are able to, New York State hires the counter that you drive over on the roads, those tubes, they pay a company to go out and they keep track of that. If you go on the New York State website, they have counts that they've done all over the town.
Sporadic though throughout the years.
It's very random and there's.
COVID, not COVID, there's a lot of different
So
factors in it.
But it's basically between 6,000, one touch is 7,000. So it's in line with what we're seeing. And the 85th percentile is, I think, 38 on the website. So their numbers going back are also in line with what we're seeing. That's further down. It's right on the Colony line. So it's actually much more of a straightaway, and I would say would, if you're looking at that road.
Punched any number that could possibly.
Yeah, and it's really kind of going through. And just to speak of that 85th, you would see the crashes. If it was a problem, you'd see the crashes. If it was a hazard, you'd have the warning signs up. So I think that's important to differentiate that curve on the road itself is not a problem. It's only a problem if it's causing accidents and things like that.
I have another question. Did you get that incident report that happened in front of my house about 3 weeks ago?
No idea.
I was on my porch working on my wife's flowers. I'm not into flowers or gardening. I heard the noise of a car speeding. You can hear them. Hit my garbage can. Knocked the mirror off their car, sent my garbage cans flying. So I was debating whether to call the police or not. So I called him. I told him what happened. And I said, is there anything he could do? He said, no. I showed him the mirror sitting on the road, not on the road, along the side of the road. And I said, he asked me, what was the license plate number and what kind of car was it? I said, when somebody's going by 40, 42 miles an hour, I didn't get that information. I said, it just was too fast. So he went out with me. He saw the car. It was a Honda. He says, just throw the mirror away. There's nothing we can do. Now, was that incident put on there? How about during the winter when I helped people out of the ditch across the street because they got stuck? And I help them. Should I not be a nice guy and help these people? I don't call it in because accidents do happen, but it's an accident. And I was told from now on, do not help them, call the police, and have the police handle it. So is that what you want me to do?
You have your own free will to do whatever you choose.
Well,
to do.
you're just telling me that the accidents, I could have doubled them accidents or tripled them by calling the police.
Going off the road due to weather-related accidents is a different conversation sometimes.
Okay,
I can only speak to the numbers I have. I'm telling you, year to date, we have 4 on the total.
so what you're telling me then is don't bother helping these people. Call the police department and have them handle it. So that way it'll be marked down in your quote, unquote, statistics.
How would we know if we wasn't reported?
So that's what you're saying to me. Call the police if it happens.
If somebody needs help, call the police. If there's an accident, please, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You good?
Yeah, it's not worth getting into. Yeah, I'm good.
Going into the Berman Road analysis, Mr. Yeakel had asked us to do some analysis on that. You want to speak to that too, or you want me to speak to that?
You can speak to it. It's
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so we did an analysis from September 6th through September 17th on Berman. At Stuyvesant, we put our box up. The number of vehicles that were analyzed were 2,990. We did have an average speed of 26 miles an hour in the 85th percentile there at 33 miles an hour. We were talking and working with Mr. Yeakel on this because we want to make sure that, whenever we have something like this, obviously the average speed's low, 85th percentile being 33, that's probably in line with that area potentially, but we got a speed trailer up over there because we want to continue to collect data. You would convey to me in an email, Mr. Yeakel, I want to speak on behalf of you, that it seems like that's starting to help kind of get people to break
It
down.
actually just came out yesterday. It was in from the 20th until yesterday, and it was instantaneous.
Okay.
And the difference is, I think the other speed tracker was the jammer.
Yes.
Nobody could see that. It was hidden on the pole, and people were doing what they were doing. Whereas the mobile trailer sits right out there, and if you turn a left or right off of St. David's Lane onto Roman, it picks your vehicle up as soon as you make that turn. And you could just watch that speed drop immediately from people because they were aware of it. So my wife and I definitely saw that worked. The visual was there, and for the last 10 or 12 days, it was great having it there in the street corner because you could clearly see it adjusting the speed on the traffic. I know my situation's not the same as Console Road, you know, I'll say it's 2 blocks. I grew up in the city. It's 2 blocks long. We have one little side street. I'm at the dead end, and it's between St. David's and Route 7. And I think that Detective Munger had mentioned that there were some trends between 6 and 8 and 11 and 12. And it was all traffic heading towards Route 7, which is no surprise to me because it's a lot of people in the morning that are using the shortcut to go to Route 7. I saw that that was helpful. It definitely made people more aware. I probably talked to 10 of my neighbors. They were all happy to see this out on the street. And, you know, I conveyed to you that we've got a lot more little kids in the neighborhood now than we ever had in the last 20 years I've lived there. Lots of older people and dog walkers. So my concern was just as what I said to you. You get people that are going down the road pretty fast. And I think you had told me, Detective Munger, that the highest speed on the road was 47. To me, that's really excessive on a street like ours. But there weren't that many like that, although my traffic volume's a lot later than.
Yeah, so I think what's important to remember is, I think your EDT was, your average daily traffic was like 250 there and about. So that's compared to, 5,000 on Console or, 50,000 on Route 7. It's a relatively low number. And certainly, people driving 17 miles of the speed limit's not acceptable, especially through that way. But I think we can do what we can to try and, use the sign, use things like that. We're working on some new technology that we're looking at purchasing to kind of put that on there. But also when you have somebody that's speeding on Vrooman, they're not only speeding on your road, it's their entire commute. So like if you're able to catch them on Console, if you're able to catch them somewhere else, or if you're able to catch them on Route 7, just having that overall enforcement of everywhere in this commute I'm going to see a police car.
Yeah.
That's certainly helpful.
Yeah, and the concern with me on Rome, and not only directly up and down my street, is that Morgan is the street that's the next one over, and ours are the 2 main streets that are the shortcuts before you get up to St. David's and Route 7 or further down the road, and so that's where we see people that are taking the cut throughs.
I don't have it at my fingertips. We've done studies or created counts on Morgan. It's a little bit busier, but the speeds are about the same.
Yeah.
So it was nothing egregious. They do have a little higher volume, but it's a bigger road and it's more of a collector than a residential road.
And as part of this conversation, I don't think I mentioned this too. So the town did apply for a linkage study and a grant for a linkage study we've been talking about for a while. That's a part of, I think, this conversation because that's that whole coming out of Schenectady to the Bellevue Women's Hospital area section and all the feeds in between. So I think the town planner, in that linkage study, I think we're going to get some better ideas because we've even talked about when we had the unfortunate tragedy of somebody losing their life on Route 7. We talked about, can we make, some of the side streets, left turn only, so you're only going into the direction of travel of Route 7, so you're not actually crossing.
And I won't do that. My wife won't do that. If we're gonna hang a left to go to Schenectady, we go down to the other end of Rome and take St. David's and go in the traffic light because it's chaos when you've got people driving high speed on Route 7. It's 4 lanes across, and I've had people passing me in the turning lane just to get around. So,
well, I think this linkage study, the linkage study is going to give us a better grasp on your specific area from 7 to St. David's and everything in between. I think that's going to give some good recommendations at the top and not for certain. Yeah, not for certain.
and I just had two follow-up. I know I had sent you I sent the chief the note about eliminating some of the outliers, the low speed vehicles. And I think you told me in your voice message that your program does that automatically. And I was just curious, out of the 2990, how many were below the, like 15 miles an hour? Because that's the thing, I live right at the corner. So that speed tracker would have picked me up just as I was taking left or right, but it only would have got me for a couple of seconds. And I would have been low speed, and I didn't want that kind of tainting either the average or the 85th percentile.
So the counter, like 15 is kind of an arbitrary number. So, and again, it kind of comes back to what's best practices and not being a traffic engineer. I don't have the number of teasing out like 15 miles an hour because that's not really accurate. Yeah, but also if you're turning, you're not going to be going 15 either. I think the cutoff was 9. I don't have it in front of me. It's set by the program, it's set by the manufacturer, which in turn uses the 60-page document that, the best practice for doing that. So those did get cut off. That is something that we're aware of, especially on roadways. If you're not in the middle of the intersection like we were with your counter, because I know you wanted it in the middle. If you're further up, you might get cars that are slowing down or speeding
Yeah.
up. And that's more of an
kind
issue with
trade-off,
that.
and I knew that was
It's-
gonna be the issue. at
It's
the
not
intersection.
there, but again, from the limited data, we did have some on the signs. It's not that far off from the 85th and I think I actually ran it. It's not part of our standard form. It's not something we normally do. It made like a half mile adjustment
Okay.
by going, it wasn't, and it's not something that we really like to do because we don't want to arbitrarily kind of
No, I got
pick
it.
numbers and mess with the whole thing, but it really didn't make much of
Yeah.
a difference.
I only looked at it because of the circumstance. It was right
Yeah.
at the intersection, and that's why I knew my neighbors pull in and out on both sides. And then the only other question I had was on the mobile trailer. Does that also collect data, or is that simply, it's picking up the speed and but you're not able to
It
download
does
that?
collect some data. It's extremely limited in what it does. I would be able to get a quick picture of one-way traffic. So I'll still be able to give you a 50th and an 80th percentile and kind of give you those data. It's not gonna give me the detail of tractor, trailer trucks, cars, motorcycles, split all that up in the buses. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't have that ability.
Okay,
But it will give us a general overall picture of the
Okay.
traffic.
so, and I wanted to thank, you guys for being really responsive, number one, because I literally brought that up at the last committee meeting. Within a few days, you had started the process of the traffic study and then the mobile trailer. And I don't know if you can do maybe some additional random drive-bys, like at those busier hours. I don't think some of the numbers came up as high as what I thought they were gonna be, but I don't know if it was the chief I spoke to, or you, and I said sometimes what you see might not necessarily correlate to what is happening on the road. A lot of these vehicles look to me like they're going much faster than they are.
Well, and sound plays a role too, right? So I tell people all the time, like, when you hear something that's loud, you're thinking it's going fast too, and those types of things play a role. in that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what's great about the sign is if you can stand in front of it, you can see how fast cars are going. So it's good for them and it's also good for you. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think that helps for sure, so.
And we can rotate that back through too. Again, we rotate the trailers on. The reason, and I mentioned this last year, Detective Mother actually with the grant for us to get these trailers. They used to be fixed posts and we used to have to call in a work order to move them and everything. We got into the trailer system only because what you don't want to do is leave a sign out too long. Like we can see on Rosendale Road, for instance, there's been a sign there for how many years?
Yeah,
And now
on the
it's
list to get
just,
moved,
it's
but-
not doing what it should be doing. It's not actually curbing people because everybody that commutes there is just so used to it, right? And they just keep going by and it doesn't pop and wake them up anymore. And that's why we try to get into moving things around so that it has a greater effect on curbing behavior.
I just wonder, are you in charge of the traffic and things like that now?
I wouldn't say I'm in charge. I help out and I try to take care
When
of
was the last time these machines were calibrated
the radar trailers. They haven't
on
been.
the telephone poles, the little brown boxes? When was the last time they were calibrated to prove that they are accurate?
Well,
The black
you're talking about
box,
two different things. The
Or
black-
both of them?
Well, the trailers, the warning signs, that is not something that gets calibrated yearly because it's not put into court in evidence. When they're set up, as silly as it sounds, we check them because we drive by and look and I turn on the radar that I have in my car and my speedometer and all three of them match. So could I go in and write a ticket off that? No, because it doesn't meet the evidentiary standards of the rate of the traffic tickets. However, I know it's working because I checked it. The black box is, it does self-calibrate and it has been in for that. So,
That's self-calibrated and checked.
I mean, again, I do the same thing. I set the box up, I drive by, I know what my speed is. I then turn around, drive over to the box and download the speed. So I feel confident it's working because I'm physically checking the speed. Again, it's not a device that we use for enforcement action for proof beyond a reasonable doubt, but I would definitely say it would be, I believe it to be working, and I have checked the signs with the tuning forks like we do in the cars, so it hasn't been to a state lab, no, but I believe it to be working.
Good. Thank you.
Under new, we had a email that was sent in to the town supervisor regarding parking on Cornelius. I did speak, this was an event, back to school night, something to that effect. We know that some of our school events pour out into our neighborhoods. The school tries to do the best they can with reminding people to be good neighbors when they're coming to these events. But unfortunately, we have people parking in an area they're not supposed to be parking in on both sides of the road on Cornelius. And one of our residents reached out to us. We did speak about this at the school safety district meeting to just make sure that they were aware, remind them. There is signage over there. It's not perfect signage, but it does designate it as a no parking area on Cornelius from Plum going towards the school, as well as a little bit of Plum as well. I think the best thing we're going to do moving forward now, you want to reach back out to her, you would like me to reach back out to her, is just say when there is an issue, she has to call us.
Okay.
So that way we can address it at that moment. Because
And you already said so. Oh, yeah, 'cause Shireen's on the committee. but she
yes, the
already
principal
knows
of
that too.
Hillside is very much aware of this. Yes. Under town events, we have the Coffee with a Cop, which is the third Tuesday monthly. Please come see us. We have 2 more weeks of the farmer's market at Town Hall. We're having we had our Coffee with a Cop events already there. Thank you everybody that attended that. October 13th, we have the Mohawk Hudson Marathon that's coming through our town. It's actually going to start in the city of Schenectady this year, not at the rec center. However, there are going to be traffic implications whereby we're going to be closing Aqueduct Road for all of the runners to safely traverse across Aqueduct Road on the bike path. It should be a pretty short time frame that we're actually blocking off Aqueduct Road. It tends to be about 25 or 30 minutes thereabouts. And then they continue on the the bike path all the way to downtown Albany. So that will be on the 13th of this month.
What's the time frame for that usually? You know,
What time
It
is that?
kicks off at 8 o'clock is when the race
and it
starts.
starts like right there, so you guys,
Yeah, it
it's
starts,
pretty early.
yeah, it's early, and we're usually off of Aqueduct Road by 9:45.
They're-
8:40.
They're actually out of our town by about 10:30 or 11.
Right, by 11
It's
o'clock,
about,
everybody's.
the train station is the last.
Last stop. there.
Yes. Also under town events, we have a trick or treat around the circle at Town Hall and Haunted House. We've done the Haunted House. I think this is our 3rd time doing it, where we have an open house at the PD and we decorate and have some smoke and treats for the kids. We used to do a Halloween parade at Town Hall, but it sounds like Gene Fody and Lori Peretti have really decided to take this to a new level. And we're gonna have a DJ and vendors and a really cool event that's gonna be on the 27th of October at Town Hall. Aaron, do you know what time that starts? I think it's at
Great
2.
question.
I think it's at-
I don't know the answer.
I have it.
I think it's at 2:30 or 3 o'clock.
I think it's 3 to 5.
Is it 3 to 5?
3 to 5.
It's 3 to 5. 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Please, everybody come and enjoy. Drug Take Back Day is going to be October 26th here at Town Hall. This is Deputy Chief Twitty's favorite event of the year. If you have any drugs that you would like to safely dispose of, please don't flush them down the toilets. Bring them to us. We have boxes that we put them in and we get them safely disposed of. As a side note, we do not take needles. Please do not bring needles to us. We don't take needles. Any hospital that you go to will take needles and dispose of them for you. So please utilize Ellis if you need to do that.
Is this the same day as the electronics recycling thing?
Sometimes it is.
I think it is. Maybe we can put that all together.
Yes, sorry, it's also first day of early voting.
This is gonna be a fun Saturday.
So we're all kind of on the circle in an area. We don't really affect anything else.
Oh, they don't come in.
We had Arbor
Okay.
Day one time too, and I worked through that with Laura. We're
Yeah.
very out of the way. People can drive up, drop their stuff off and be on their way. So when you come vote, bring your drugs if you need to, right?
And recycling.
And your
goes around
recycling.
to the PD
Okay, yeah, it's in the parking lot, right?
in the
'Cause they have
back,
to-
yeah.
Didn't they just have a recycling? The shred event.
No, well, this one's a shred and a recycling event.
Electronics, this is the-
E-waste, yeah, yeah, I think it's like bring your cords and your weird TVs. I know, who doesn't have a box of cords, really? Why did
Yeah.
we save them? You know, one time I think I've used one.
Under the town clerk, we still have the peddling and soliciting and no soliciting registry. Michelle, did you want to say anything about that?
So I talked to somebody at the Village of Scotia and she's given me some information about what they do. I passed it on to Elena and Elena's gonna start working on changing the code for that, or we haven't decided if we want to do that. I've given her all the information. She's working on that. And we should still be working on the background checks to make sure that everybody vending in the town has a background check. We think it's very important, even if they,
Or for a not-for-profit,
right, not for profit. Because we've had some problems.
yes.
We don't want that.
No.
So Elena's working on that.
She's working to put that into the code, the background. Yeah. Okay.
That was that loophole, like, I don't refer to it as a loophole in town. Yes. Just under court and town attorney, we still have ongoing dog bite cases. I looked today, as of today, we have 54 pending bus patrol hearings, as that program continues to roll out. Chief Vena apologizes. He had something out of town for work that he had to go to, so he couldn't be here today, but he did not provide me anything from the fire departments. Under the school district, we're still looking at the school speed zones on Rosendale and potentially Center. I put e-bikes and scooters. I mentioned this at the school district safety meeting. There has been an increase, obviously, in e-bikes and scooters as they've become more affordable, more readily available. A lot of our students utilize them. We have had some calls at different locations for people using them, potentially unsafely. This is something that Councilmember Brennan had emailed Complete Streets to give us some recommendations on town code to further regulate these things. But I did speak with the school district about it because I was hoping that we could really partner together to do some better messaging to our students. And they're working on that right now. Emily Burkhart and Superintendent Carl Lumete were great about this. There's going to be something shared through the district, I'm hoping, in the next week or two regarding safety.
I've noticed that a lot of people don't follow how you're supposed to walk against traffic or with traffic, or even riding bikes with traffic level. Can there be some kind of something to reach out with school, or even adults don't do?
I know.
I mean, you have people walking with traffic, and aren't you supposed to walk against traffic and then bike with traffic?
Yes.
And just driving through the neighborhoods, people aren't doing that.
It's something that we've been talking about expanding. So our traffic and community engagement division, we're talking with Complete Streets about doing some sort of campaign with crosswalks and things of that nature as well. And that's, there is a time frame in our governor's traffic safety sort of schedule where we get grant monies where we really focus on pedestrian traffic. And so we can add that to that as well, Michelle. Yeah. I mean, and I will say, and I do it myself, but police officers generally do stop, especially if it's somebody that is really not paying attention and not doing everything to try to stop and educate them on, hey, you're on the other side.
Yeah. Especially with these scooters,
And they don't wear helmets. It makes
No.
me crazy in the morning.
Yes. Under personnel, we started canvassing the current civil service list. There's not a whole lot of people on it. So hopefully we can find someone that will fit our needs and be good for our police department. Under other, the law enforcement tech grant, I was waiting. I already given the Motorola quote. Again, Motorola is vetted through Sourcewell, which our town recognizes as a consortium to vet contracts for purchasing and procurement. However, just out of the doing some due diligence above and beyond, we wanted to get a secondary quote from another competitor that is, a really high up ranked competitor. Detective Munger was actually working on this. So we got it through Flock Safety. And the quote from Motorola, the total package, apples to apples, between Flock and Motorola. Maybe Motorola's first, just to reiterate what it was again. Motorola's quote was $161,965. The total price from Motorola, including turning on LPR capable software to all of our in-car cameras, which we want to do because it makes them all mobile LPR recorders, would be an additional 14,765, meaning that the total to Motorola, if we chose to go with them, would be 176,730 total. And this comes out of that grant money that we applied for these technologies. So again, and I know this is confusing, but subtract out what I just said for a minute. The Motorola quote, if we're going to compare apples to apples with Flock, was $161,965. Flock's quote for the same equipment was $189,300. Now, Motorola, you own the equipment. Flock, you lease the equipment. So it's actually more expensive to go with Flock, and you don't have ownership of the physical equipment itself. Is that correct, Ian?
That's correct. I think it's also important to note that while it's a lot of money over 5 years, using the cameras inside our cars for as kind of a bonus LPR is huge, and that's something that Motorola doesn't, that Flock doesn't offer. And Flock also doesn't have the mounted LPRs on the top of the cameras. So we have one of those that probably reached the end of its life 10 years ago. We're looking to replace that. We wouldn't be able to get that through Flock. We'd have to go with Motorola or another company for that technology. This way, they all work together, and we are investigating an incident that happened on Route 7. We're actually using some of that technology that we're testing out, and that's been instrumental in working on that case today. So I was literally doing that about 2 hours ago. So it's working, and it's working well.
We've got a really good relationship with Motorola and good experience so far with the body worn cameras, the radios, and the dash cameras. We have knock on wood, no complaints with them. So it is my recommendation that you put on for resolution to go with Motorola to utilize these grant monies for this. And like I said in the previous meetings, it's a big purchase. This is being made with our grant award. So it's no money coming out of the town of Niskuna taxpayers' pocket in the budgetary cycle to make this purchase. Again, these technologies are, it's going to be essentially maintenance free for 5 years. And that's including, when I said that, turning on all of the dash cameras, that price, that $14,765, that's a 5-year agreement for those. So this whole package is a 5-year deal for that price, including warranties. So any questions there? Also under other, the governor's traffic safety grants that we apply for annually. We were awarded in PTS money $15,270 and in CPS money $2,850. I just want to make a note. Lieutenant Frenier worked hard on this. Detective Munger worked on this. The $15,270 includes, for the first time ever, we applied for an actual, well, is it the first time ever? Since I've been doing grants, which has been almost 10 years, we have not applied for an equipment purchase. And we were able to work with them this year to fund a new radar for one of our vehicles through this. So that's a part of that $15,000, $15,270 grant. So that's great work on them for finding, again, more money that for a piece of equipment we need, that is not coming out of our regular budget cycle. Excuse me. And then I also have under other our Power DMS / Planet agreement. This is our scheduling software / payroll software that we use for the PD. We've been in it for a number of years. All of the software companies are averaging somewhere in the range of 5 to 10% increases every single year. I'm a town supervisor. I've been talking about budgets recently, and I contacted them after we had a conversation to see if we could really lock into a 3-year agreement with a controlled increase. So it is a 3-year agreement with a 6% increase year on end to avoid that. I think 1 year they told me it was 2 years ago, it was like an 8% increase. Last year was like a 6% increase. So we're trying to really look towards the future. I actually requested after we did this through Lexipol, who's our policy manual provider, to do the same thing, to see if we can't get actually a 5-year agreement locked at 5% increases, because again, they average between 6 and 10% in these calls. That's all I have. I have the resolutions for the vehicle outfitting for patrol vehicles, the purchase of LPR technologies, acceptance of a GTS grant, and the surplus of a vehicle. I'm gonna take the surplus of the vehicle off only because I think we're gonna work something out for our department to get them to. I think it's just in our fixed asset inventory internally.
Yeah.
The only way we need a resolution, I don't even think that's, if that was gonna pay for it.
No, I don't think.
You know. So. That's all I have. If no one has anything else, do we have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? I'll take from.
Second.
All those in favor?
I.
With that, we're gonna conclude this meeting. Thank you for everyone who attended. Our next meeting is gonna be for November 7th, 2024 at 3:30 p.m.